Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 152nd installment of the Torah portion of the week. We are holding by Parshas Vayera, and Parshas Vayera speaks about Hachnasas Orchim, having guests. Fact that Avraham himself wanted to have guests, even though he was sick, even just recovering from Bris Milah. We've spoken about the importance of Hachnasas Orchim. Avram intercedes for Sodom, right? Trying to find righteous people for Sodom. Also, Sodom gets totally demolished, and the Akedah, right? We speak about the Akedah as well over here. So, quite a packed parsha here. But I want to speak about Lot, right? And how great was Lot. We know that Lot himself is a Russia, right? He goes to Sodom, he goes to Sin City, right? Even though he hung out with Avram and he lived by Avram and he knows all about Hachnasas Orchim, but having guests, we're going to speak about that. But in general, he's considered evil, right? He's considered evil, but he's willing to self-sacrifice, right? He's willing to seemingly almost give up his life, or at least the life of his daughters, right? To save his guests, save his important guests. So we have to understand a little bit about Lot. So it says, chapter 19, verse 16, still he lingered. Men grasped him by his hand, his wife's hand, the hand of his two daughters. Hashem had mercy on him. They took him out, left him outside the city. And it was they that took them out. One said, flee for your life. Do not look behind. Do not stop anywhere in all the plain. Right? He's leaving because Sodom's going to get destroyed. To the mountain, lest you be swept away. And Verse 18 says, Lot said to them, please know, my Lord, see now your servant has found grace in your eyes. Your kindness was great, which you did with me to save my life, and I cannot escape this mountain, lest evil attach itself to me and I die. Right, eventually he flees. And he gets out and he survives. So Rashi there says that when I was by the people of Sodom, God saw my actions and the actions of my city, and I was compared to them, I was righteous. So even though they were evil and it was Sin City, Lot's looked at as a righteous dude, right? Lot is righteous compared to them, and therefore he deserved to be saved. But if he's looked at compared to Avram, is he righteous? No. Right? He's not considered righteous, he's considered evil. So said the Tzorfasis women, or Tzorfis woman, when she speaks to Eliyahu, speaks to Elijah. She says, when I came to you, mentioned my poverty, right, until I didn't come to you, Kodesh Baruch Hu, God himself, saw my actions of my people, and I was righteous between them. When I come to you, I'm considered evil. Right, so you see two cases where compared to their environment, they're righteous, compared to other people that are more righteous than them, they're considered evil. So Lot is considered evil. But compared to his people, Lot himself is considered righteous. Now we know that Lot also lies to save Avram. Right? We know that, or not lie, but he doesn't reveal, let's say better, he doesn't reveal the fact that Sarah is his wife. Because if he would have, and Avram would have got killed, he had everything to gain. Lot could have inherited everything. Right? He would have been his only descendant. He could have inherited. But he doesn't. So he's done some good things in his life. But the reality is, it's considered evil. You look, he's willing to mafkir, he's willing to give over his two daughters. So the guests don't, the people of the city do not go after the guests. He says, take my 2 daughters, do what you want. Wasn't such a righteous dude doing that. So, gotta understand who Lot is. And in general, what's going on with a person's environment. Now Lot, even though he was evil, we see that nonetheless he has the merit to be saved. Why? Because for the sake of having guests, he's willing to give up his life, and he puts himself in danger. So Rashi says, when the people of Sodom came banging on his door, they want to have their way with his guests. It means all the people, Rashi says. All the people came, and he slams the door behind him, even though he's willing to give up his daughters. Regardless, tremendous amount of self-sacrifice. So on the one hand, compared to his people, he's totally righteous. Look what he's done over here. But compared to others, compared to Avram, compared to others, not so righteous. So how did he get this idea, this strong idea of Achnasas Orchim? Right, it says, Moiv Rebbe, Arav Agad and Moshe Moshlita should be well, brings down in Chochmah V'das, that he didn't look at Achnasas Orchim as a mitzvah, but simply understood, and he enjoyed having guests. In other words, so what was he doing in life? Even though he lived in Sin City, he loved having guests. He loved having them benefit from him. He loved giving to them. He learned that from Avram. So therefore he understood the mitzvah of Achnasas Orchim, and he had tremendous joy. So for him it wasn't a big deal. You tell me he put his life in danger, but that's what he did for the sake of having guests. But nonetheless, he lives in Sin City. Nonetheless, he's still considered a Rasha. But you know what? He wasn't willing to change. Just because of the people of Sodom, he still wanted to have guests. He still got enjoyment from having guests, regardless of what they tried to tell him. So he was willing to give up everything to have guests, put his life in danger. But the point isn't about having guests. Right? That's not what we're going to focus on. Right? We're going to focus on who Lot was. Lot himself loved having guests. He learned from Avram, not as a mitzvah, as my Rebbe says. But he learned it out. He wanted to give others benefit. He wanted others to benefit, not for any ulterior motive. And he wasn't willing to give up that, even for the sake of putting his life and the life of his kids in danger. So my Rebbe says that, as we mentioned before, chapter 19, verse 19, depends who he's compared to. Right? Living in his own generation, living amongst the people of Sodom, not such a bad guy. Living next to Avram, bad guy. So it depends who you're hanging out with. So, it could be, Maria Beer asks, why isn't it better to live amongst people that are not so righteous? Because then, when you come in contact with them, you'll be smelling like a rose. Even if you're not that righteous, but you're more righteous than them. You do more good things than they do. So I would say, Rabbi says, let them live among Rishayim. Let someone live amongst evil people. Because if you live against evil people and you do good things, so what does that mean? It means you're going to be smelling pretty good in God's eyes. Unless you have greater potential, that if you live amongst greater people, you should be even greater, or maybe you wouldn't be anything. Right? So we'll get to that in a second. Right? But the atmosphere around a person is everything. So I got asked this question last week. Do you have any secular friends? My answer was no. No people I hang out with. You know, my entire community is Orthodox. You know, more or less. So those are the people I'm going to learn from. Those are the people I'm going to grow from. Because I know the secular world has nothing to offer. I know the secular world is crumb. Right? It's no good. Values are no good. So why should I live amongst people whose values are bad? So you're going to say every single person, the values are bad? So let's make clear. You know, people live in a world of moral relativism. They'll say, let me do as I want. I'm not going to bother you. You don't bother me. Well, the Torah says there are definitely things that are right and things that are wrong. So if you believe in moral relativism, I'm okay, you're okay. But how do you define if you're good? You're going to tell me I'm good in my heart, the cardiac Jew. Nothing to be proud of, even though people will say, you know, I'm that cardiac Jew. I'm a Jew in my heart. Well, most people know my stand on that. The point is, it's that their values are not good values. Maybe some of them are, fine. But the majority of values, what they do, how they speak against others. Why do you want to be in an environment like that? Isn't it better to be in a ghetto? I remember once had people visit me many years ago. They looked around, all these black hats, you know, long coats, short coats, and say, wow, this is a ghetto. I said, I know, it's great, isn't it? They're like shocked. Like, why'd you live in a ghetto? Because these are the people you want to learn from. These are the people who are going to pass Torah down. It's not in the secular world. You know, the secular world doesn't have anything to offer. The values are skewed. They're not Torah values. It's not based on what I want to do. It's based on what's true. That being said, who you live around is everything. And therefore, if you live around people that don't keep Torah, that don't keep mitzvahs, you're quickly going to fall. You're quickly going to become impure by what you hear, by what you do. It's going to overcome you. Because we're weak. We think we may have more influence on them, just the opposite. However, he tells the story of the Baal Tanya. Right, first Lubavitcher Rebbe, they wrote the Tanya. That one of his students decided to go to university. So the Baal Tanya told him, you better be careful. You're going to go hear all kinds of heresy. You're going to hear things that go against Torah. That's going to mess you up. That could cause you to go off the derech. That could cause you not to be a Torah true Jew. And what did the student tell him? Student said, don't worry. The environment is not going to have any effect on me. Why not? How are you so sure? So he says, student tells him, I was by you. For many years I learned in your base medrash, in your study hall. I didn't become such a tzaddik by learning by you. So therefore, if I go to university, they're not going to influence me either. Just like I wasn't influenced positively by you, they're not going to influence me in a negative way. This comes on the Baal Tanya. And the Baal Tanya answers, Tuma, Impurity. How does a person become impure? By touch. How does a person become holy? Has to be bolea. You have to absorb it. Person does not become righteous or learned overnight. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of ups and downs, a lot of hardship, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But you do it, you get somewhere. God will help you along the way. It's not just, oh, I'm studying in this base medrash. I'm in this study also by osmosis. I'm going to become a tzaddik. No work. I'm not going to work that hard. And I'll become righteous. Comes on the Balatanya says that's a big mistake. Impurity, heresy, these type of things. Or let's say impurity better. You become impure through touch. Very easy. Listen to classes. Be in this type of environment. Everything's okay. There's nothing that's wrong. Go according to any persuasion you want. It's going to have an influence. You want holiness? You want Kedusha? It ain't coming overnight. That's something you're going to have to fight for. So too, my Rebbe says that a vessel, some utensil also that touches this also is impure. In other words, touch. One thing's impure, touches something else makes it impure. But it doesn't mean if I take a kli, if I take a spoon, a bowl or something, and it touches another bowl, doesn't make it holy by touch. Making it impure by touch, yes. Making it holy by touch, no. Unless it's bolea. Right? Unless it gets absorbed through heat or something else. Something else absorbs it. Holiness you can't get unless you absorb it. You gotta work at it. So then my Rebbe says, in the case of Lot, you look at the environment. He's living in Sin City. He's in Las Vegas. Think he's going to stay holy? Going to be very quick before he becomes impure. So the environment is crucial. So there you want to smell like a rose. You think you're going to be great in that environment. Could be you will be. But look who you're comparing yourself to. If I compare myself to, God forbid, the dregs of the earth, that's who I am. I'm not much better than them, but I am. If I compare myself to other righteous people, how much better am I than them? How much on a higher level? Not. Because the environment is everything. So, if a person lives in an environment, right, and the only environments around are bad, then you got to move to the desert. You got to go somewhere. That's why, right now we get to the other issue. That's why Orthodox Jews live amongst themselves. Because the influence of the other side is too strong. It's too negative. So you're going to say, why is that? Why can't you be stronger? It's not a question of being stronger. It's a question of the tumah being that strong. The impurity, the bad ideas, the bad language. I heard plenty of that. No one even thought twice about it. Making fun, cynical comments. It's not a Torah value. I mentioned today in my Q&A, someone said, if there's no benefit to not speaking Lashon Hara? Should I learn it? Right? Because it's talking about this idea that non-Jews aren't going to do anything if it's not beneficial to them. So Lashon Hara may not be beneficial. It doesn't affect them. They can speak Lashon Hara. Question is it a good thing? It's a moral issue. It's not under the Noahide laws. But don't you want to be a better person? A better person will say, well, you think you're so much better because you learn these laws? Yes. Why? Because I don't speak badly against others. Or you try not to. You don't just say whatever you think. So even if you tell me it's not one of the Noahide laws, doesn't it make them a better person? Are they not as vindictive? Are they not as cruel, saying things against others? Yes. Is it a moral imperative or an obligation? For a non-Jew, it's a moral imperative. It's a good thing for them to do. It betters them. They work on their character traits. Well, isn't that universal? Not necessarily. If you'd ask people about how they speak about others or whatever, they'll say it's normal. They don't have to change. Okay, deal with it. Don't be so sensitive. Not a question of being sensitive. It's a question of whether it's right. So even if it's not going to affect them, even if there's no benefit, there is a benefit over here. Even though it doesn't apply to them, per se, technically according to the Noahide laws, there is a definite benefit. Makes them better people. Makes them careful what they say and how they say it. Now, even though it may not be forbidden, it's still not a good thing. Even where it's permitted to speak Lashon Hara, you're only allowed to do it under certain conditions. And if those conditions aren't met, that it's forbidden. Because it's not done for the right reason. It has to have a purpose. You can't just spew out against somebody this, that, for no purpose. If they're evil, not a problem. You can warn people about what they do, you can make fun of them. You still have to be careful. Because even in that case where it's permissible, you don't want to just run around shooting off your mouth, oh, he's bad and he's this and he's that. Might be permissible, might not be so good for your soul either. So we see over here, we mentioned many times, and I wanted to really harp on this idea about Lot. And that depends how you're looking at him. On the one hand, he's willing to give up his life. He's willing to be moiser nefesh, self-sacrifice for what? To save the people. To save the messengers, the angels. He's willing to do whatever it takes. He's willing to give up his kids. Well, I don't think that's so good. So Lot's an interesting character. You ask most people, he's a Rasha. He's evil. I don't think there's any question. But look at the good things. Look at how much self-sacrifice he's willing to do to have guests. Could have given up his life. On the other hand, he's living in Sin City. He's living in Las Vegas. On the Strip. Having a grand old time. We're not so righteous. So it depends. Depends how we look at him. In his environment. According to his environment, he's definitely more righteous than them. In general, he's not. But you see, Lot had a merit over here. He had a merit to be saved because he didn't squeal on Avram, saying that he was the husband, not the brother. Another thing happened to Lot. Even though he got saved from that, his daughter's thinking, it's the end of the world. There's no other men. Better get our father drunk, have children, because we won't be able to survive. There won't be a human race. So the first one, he got drunk and didn't know what was going on. The second one, he seemingly did. But regardless, first daughter has a child. Child's called Moab. Not so sneeze, not so modest, because Moab means from my father. But who comes out of Moab? 5 generations? Right? Or question, how close she was to the king of Moab. Ruth, whether granddaughter, daughter, right, or further down, definitely related to the king of Moab. 5 generations out of Ruth comes King David. In order for the Messiah to come, he's got to be from the line of David. We understand who David is and what he did in his life. And how great he is. But then you tell me, he came from an incestuous relationship? He came from Lot! And he came from Lot and his daughters. Doesn't look so good. So one possible explanation is that you can have a spark of holiness, even something like that. Then what can happen years later? Or you can say you never know where it's going to come from. God's the one dictating, because that doesn't make any sense. You're talking about a messianic figure. You're going to talk about how he's perfect and what he does. You talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. Someone like that, you wouldn't say it comes from that type of relationship. But you see, for whatever reason, there's a spark. Right? That spark comes out of him. That spark goes 5 generations. Or however many generations from Ruth. Sorry, 5 generations from Ruth to King David. However many generations her to the king of Moab. That boggles the mind. So if you want to tell me he's truly evil across the board, he ain't coming. King David ain't coming from him. You want to say it's changed, generations, this, that. God ain't going to do that. You're not going to take someone like Nimrod, take a spark from him, make the Messiah. Or anyone else who's really, truly evil. So here, Lot's in a fix. He's definitely done terrible things. But he still has that spark. He has that spark, he gets saved. During Sodom because he didn't lie. Because he didn't say anything about Avram. And he was Moser Nefesh. Tremendous self-sacrifice. He doesn't give up people in his house. And he's willing to put his life in danger. Well, that's a tremendous thing. So there is a spark there. Right? Somewhat of a strong one. Okay, other things he did wrong, no question. But there's enough of something there that God says, you know what, I'm going to use him. And the future Messiah is going to come through them. Because if you're reading the book at face value, it makes no sense. Right? The redemption of the Jewish people and the future Messiah is going to come from this. So there has to be some goodness there. Or something strong, self-sacrifice, whatever. That God says, you know what? I'm going to use him. He's going to be the one. But a person should never make the mistake and say, I'm bigger than my environment. That I know better. That I know I can handle things. I'm going to live in Sin City. They're going to say, how do people go out in these places and do kiruv? Oh, that's a good question. They're going out to a desert, in many ways, no pun intended. So therefore, they have to make themselves totally insulated. They have to set guidelines. Right? For the sake of doing outreach, not everything is permitted. You don't send yourself and put yourself into the gutter because I want to bring somebody back to Judaism. Because if you go down to the gutter, you're going to get dirty yourself. And that's what Rabbi here says from the Baal HaTanya. Because the Baal HaTanya says, you want to put yourself in that situation, you're doomed. You're setting yourself up for failure. If you come through it, all right. But you should never be tempted to do that. You should never be tempted to put yourself in a situation. You have to go to university, do it in a way that's kosher. You're not going to live on the campus. If you can do it online, better. If you have to do it in classes, okay. But you go in, you go out. You do what you have to do. You don't let the environment affect you. Say, oh, you're so weak. Yeah. That's why we hang around our own people. Our own religious people. Because they're going to bring us to the next step. They're going to help us grow in spirituality. That's not going to happen in the secular world. They can try, they can huff and puff, say they're going to blow your house down, but guess what? They're just blowing smoke, but they have an effect. Totally has an effect. It's what the Greeks wanted. Right? I got donuts here in Israel. Still got, good enough time before Hanukkah. But the Greeks, that's what they wanted. They said, live amongst us, be like us, do what we do. That's 10 times worse than someone bow down this guy in a stick or a short little fat guy. Bow down or die. Because they're the being nice. They're the saying, come to our movie theaters. Come to our gymnasium. Come to our football stadium. Come and enjoy, be like us, be a regular guy. We don't want to hurt you, we just want to make you normal. Right? Isn't that what people are going to say? You got to see the light. Because you're so close-minded. You're so backwards. And the more you stay in those communities, they'll tell you, the more backwards you are. So I will tell you, I'll take my chances. I have to be part of an environment and live amongst people who are trying to convince everyone that the gender is not their own gender. How do I know I'm not the person I'm supposed to be? Maybe I'm in the body of someone else. Of a opposite sex. How do I know? Do you ever think about it? Maybe you're in the wrong body. Maybe you need to get fixed. That's a heresy like you can't imagine. And it's unbelievably powerful. God forbid you speak out against it. Well, it's a good thing. I'm not politically correct. Never have been, never will be. Too bad. But that's a catastrophe. Because you put in the ideas of children of what they think is normal. Or not. How do you know you really want to go in that direction? Maybe you want to go in the other direction. You give them ideas they should never have ideas about. It's not normal behavior. Regardless of what the world tells you. A person can have certain disposition. But that's not normative. Right? According to the Torah, let's say better. Right? A woman cleaves to her husband. And vice versa, not to another woman. Guy not to another guy. It's not normal. And if everyone would act on that, you wouldn't have any kids. You wouldn't have a population. So it can't be normal. Can you have a disposition? Yes. Is it supposed to be that way? No. So I should be that open-minded till my brains fall on the floor and say that's normal. Why is that? Why in the world is that normal? Men and women, husband and wife, been going on for centuries, millennia. Doesn't mean homosexuality didn't exist. It's not as powerful as it is today. The whole movement itself. Do I have to expose my kids to that? That's how open-minded I have to be. I know it's bad. And it's not normal. So that means, we're living in Sodom and Gomorrah. We're living in the time of the Roman Empire, which corruption and all this stuff killed them, destroyed them from within. In that environment, there's also a lot of fun, a lot of enjoyment. The problem is, it's antithetical to Torah. So even though we're mixed amongst the nations, and we live in different parts, and we have no more ghettos, right? In a few places we do. But most people they're Jews, non-Jews, secular Jews together. It's hard. Got to work hard to try and insulate our kids. Very hard to do that today. That ghetto mentality is not a bad thing, because it keeps us on the straight and narrow path. Why do we need to tempt ourselves? We know it's bad. The environment around us is bad. Newspapers, movies, all these things, they're bad. They go against what Torah is. So we have to see things through a filter. Oh, you can't think for yourself. Not a question of thinking for yourself. It's a question of knowing that it's bad. That it has a negative influence 10 times worse than whatever I would try and convince someone Torah is true. Because the other way is much more enticing. So the Baal Tanya is saying, don't think, the environment's not going to affect me. Just like the holiness didn't affect me. Yeah, holiness only affects you if you absorb it. How does impurity affect you? Just by touching. Just by doing something so small. Then it opens up a whole Pandora's box. Next thing you know, you're gonzo. It's a process. But we don't have to let the process start. So don't think Sin City is a great thing. I'm not going to get that affected. Well, he did. But he also had enough of a spark that King David comes from. It seems like a contradiction. But no one in their right mind is going to put themselves in such a position to fail. Because at the end of the day, I heard a great rabbi once say that no secular university has ever taken someone before and after and made them greater in morality. He says, I would like to see a university, that's what I meant, a university take someone and after 4 years make them into a total moral individual. Right? And they come in better than when they go out better than when they came in. I don't think anyone's going to do that. That's an impossibility. University, by definition, does not teach morality. You can say, well, you have to learn it on your own. How are you going to learn it? What's the anchor? What's definition of good? Whatever I think. Whatever society thinks. So a good thing is someone's on a respirator, they're suffering, you pull the plug. Well, that's euthanasia. That's a good thing. Well, we call that murder. You call it murder, I call it a good thing. It's not me, it's what the Torah says. So by definition, you're telling me, well, that's good. Other things are good. How do you know? How do you know what's good? If you ask me, well, okay. What's your definition of good? It's not my definition. What the Torah says is good. You keep Torah mitzvahs to the highest level, the best you can be, that's good. Torah tells me that. You go in the Torah's way, it's called life. If not, it's called death. Not my definition. The Shema When we read it, second paragraph says, do the right thing, good. Meaning keeping God's Torah, keeping mitzvahs, not my language. It's what the Torah says. You do something bad, wrong, against what God wants, punishment, bad. How do you know the Torah is true? That's a different story. That's a whole different question. But our definition of what is true, what is good and what is bad, is based on what God tells us. It's not based on what we think. It's not based on the morals of the time. It's not based on I feel like doing it or not, or what's in my heart, or this cardiac Jew thing. It's about what the Torah defines as good. Where I mentioned Leviticus chapter 11 about kashrus. Right, the Kli Yakar says that it's not about health. We don't keep kosher because of health. You see non-Jews eat all kinds of stuff, seem to be healthy. It's a spiritual thing, but it's a decree. God says this is good for you. Eat it. God says this is bad for you. Don't eat it. Not my definition, and nothing to do with trichinosis. Just one example. We're not putting ourselves on the line here and saying, this is my opinion. What we're saying is this is God's opinion. I'm just exemplifying what he says. I'm just giving over what he says. And nothing to do with me. Not anti-pork, not anti-McDonald's, not anti-Wendy's. I'm anti what God is anti. What he says not to eat. Why does he say not to eat it? He knows best. But it has nothing to do with health. It's about because God said it, he decreed it, we keep it. It's essentially a decree. Even though some will say we are what we eat and it affects our spiritual soul, this, that, even though it's never been proven by science, so we don't care. Because not everything has to be proven by science. But regardless, we do it because God knows what's best for us. Even if we don't understand the reason. It's a decree. It's a divine decree. So Lot over here thinks he knows better. He thinks he's in charge of his environment and in control. We're not. We see how easily it is to be corrupted if you're not living among your own people. Meaning like-minded people. That's why we stick together. That's why we don't live in secular environments. That's why we live in our own enclaves. And that's why we live in a Jewish ghetto. Where we should stay, and Judaism will flourish. So I want to remind people that I have a class on duties of the heart every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, New York time. We are speaking about why Olam Haba is not mentioned in the Torah or the prophets. I have 2 question and answer sessions every week, every Tuesday, every Thursday, 10 in the morning, New York time, live on Facebook and Zoom. I have a class in the book of Leviticus chapter 11. As well every Sunday, 9 o'clock in the morning. I have conversion classes twice a week. One on Sunday, one on Thursday night. So anyone interested, find me on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion and Judaism. Or you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBIChaimKoffman@gmail.com. You take a look at my YouTube channel, Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. You can see videos on Torah portion of the week, on the holidays, on conversion. You can search YouTube for Tanakh Talk, TNAK, and my name, and you'll see videos I've done on my work with converts. Wish everyone a great Shabbos!